Good afternoon, this is Nicholas from Gandora Gaming, and this is my discussion video on one of the few archetypes that had potential that honestly hasn't done anything in the TCG yet, that being Rescue Ace. So Rescue Ace, if you don't know, is the archetype that came out of Tactical Masters. It's a, no, not Tactical Masters, my apologies, that's the Labyrinth set. It came out of Amazing Defenders. It was also debuted with the Pearly cards and, of course, Mikanko. There are the three deck build archetypes that came out that set, and Rescue Ace had interesting potential, but it's probably the weakest out of all the archetypes in that set. Mikanko had some rogue playability in Libromancer builds, not to mention as like an OTK Kaiju variant, while Pearly did not go with meta immediately, but did have some meta playability in the start of Cyberstorm Access, and then immediately got nerfed to death, literally like 3 weeks into its lifespan with the ban list, which I still think is crazy. That deck didn't even like have like 2 tournament tops over its belt, but for Konami it was just like, yep, let's just nerf it to death, and they kind of did that. Don't get me wrong, Pearly is still a playable archetype, and it still can definitely do plays, but its meta viability has definitely fallen into question. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we are discussing Amazing Defenders and, of course, the Rescue Ace archetype. So Rescue Ace is a fire machine archetype based around, well, firefighters. And basically it is a control / mid-range deck. It's a very, very interesting archetype. A lot of monsters are hand traps in hand. Not like the extent like Psyframes are hand traps, but more like their monsters are quick effects in hand to do things. And basically the whole gimmick of the deck is that right now it is Turbulence Turbo. And what I mean by that is Turbulence is their main boss monster. I believe he's a level 8. I could be mistaken. But basically, you expose someone by banishing 2 Rescue Aces from your graveyard or field. And then once per turn during the main phase, you can just set 4 Rescue Ace spells and traps directly for the deck, which is an absolutely busted ability. And there's some really cool quick plays and traps that you can set off this effect, and they do some interesting things. Personally, I always felt it felt flat. It kind of felt like Amazement, where like it's a cool control archetype, but all the control cards that they set, like the equips traps or whatever, just weren't strong enough. And this was kind of the same thing. Like the quick play spells that we got in the first wave and the trap cards we got in the first and second wave just didn't feel like it was enough. Yeah, you get to set 4 from deck, but when those 4 cards are like average at best, and it requires you to have like a level 1 guy on field, it just wasn't really that great. But luckily, Konami has given us 2 new support cards revealed and the newest set, and they look interesting. They have huge potential. In the OCG, this deck is actually the strongest deck in the meta for the last 3 weeks, which is kind of insane. Now, the reason why I think it's one of the strongest decks in the meta is that it's a really cool control mid-range deck that plays around a lot of the hand traps that are kind of viable this format. And what I mean by that is they have Maxi, I don't know, just the hand traps that like work on them don't really work on them. For example, Ash Blossom isn't that big of a deal against Rescue Ace because it sets from deck, so Turbulence just sets 4 from deck. Yes, they do have Imperm and Veiler, but Imperm and Veiler aren't the greatest hand traps against every deck in the format. So, they're not great against that, but they can still play through it. And especially if they do it, they can probably make a play around it. But Maxi, which is probably the biggest hand trap of that format, is basically a 2-card combo to special summon out Turbulence. All you have to do is literally probably like normal summon 1, activate a quick play spell, and then bam, you have 2 Rescue Ace, 1 in grave and 1 on field, and you just special summon out Turbulence set 4, and basically played around Maxi. That's kind of the biggest strength for the archetype, that it just plays around Nib, plays around Max C. I don't think they have Gamma like we don't. So Gamma plays around, even though I don't think that's a hand trap anymore. The deck doesn't really lose the Dark Ruler. It's just a really cool, grindy deck that just keeps setting for every main phase. So that's a really, really cool thing about it. It's very recursive. It's very Salamangreat-ish, where the interruptions and the boards it makes aren't, like, broken. But the fact that it's recursive and it does it every turn, it kind of is a deck that just outgrinds you. And it does have the ability, like Salamangreats, to kill you on turn 2. Or I guess it would be turn 3 in this case, because turn 1 they went, then turn 2 you try to play it, but it kind of disrupted you, so you didn't end on a lot. And then turn 3 they just murdered you. So the deck can flip on a dime and kill you turn 3. Of course, Access Code kind of gives every archetype a auto kill, so that doesn't really help. But I don't know. I really think Rescue Ace may just flop in the TCG. I really do think Amazing Defenders was probably as cool as the archetypes are in this set. I don't think the Pearly deck, the Rescue Ace deck, and Mikanko with the new support are going to be meta. Like, it's possible Rescue Ace is, like, as a cool rogue strategy that's like I definitely think it's tier 2. I don't think it's a bad deck at all. But I just don't see, like, everything I've seen of the deck, I just don't see, I just don't see it. Like, the deck does play a lot of hand traps, which is cool. But I feel like if the deck ever became the best deck in the TCG, it wouldn't be there for long. Like, immediately people would play outs to it, and it would just lose. Like, it would just be kicked out immediately. And I feel like that's what should have happened in the OCG. It's just for the simple fact that because those other he also plays around Droll, which is another big deal. We're kind of in a Droll format, so the fact that it plays around Droll is also really nice. It just feels like, would you play the hand traps to hurt Rescue Ace, or would you rather play the hand traps to hit every other archetype besides Rescue Ace? I feel like that's what's happening. Because again, like Max C doesn't work, Ash doesn't really work, Droll doesn't really work, but what does work is like Imperm and Veiler, and Imperm and Veiler is just not enough most of the time against like the combo heavy variants that are running around. Like the Bestial Synchro deck, that thing's crazy. Punks, all those archetypes are just like combo. Like, I feel like if you're not playing like Droll and like other like hand traps that just murder that archetype, those archetypes, I just don't think you're playing the game. So I feel like the thing in the OCG is that they're playing around every other archetype, but they can't play around Rescue Ace because the hand traps that hurt Rescue Ace don't hurt every other archetype as bad, or they're not good enough. And side decking cards are just not great either. Like, well, you got a Dark Ruler, a Turbulence. Oh, whoop-de-doo, it's already a vanilla. It already did its job. It's set for back row. It's just like, it's really difficult to say. Like, yes, board breakers like Evenly and Lightning Storm are still really good, but Lightning Storm with the 2. Don't forget that. And I don't know. I feel like Rescue Ace has hit that perfect niche where it played around all the best hand traps. It was a very mid-range control deck, and it had it didn't have a high ceiling, but it just had a high, it plays through all the best hand traps. It's just that simple, and it's just a solid deck that is like no one knows what Rescue Ace does. Let's just be honest here. Like, how many people read a Rescue Ace card until this archetype actually started putting up results? Exactly. No one was playing Rescue Ace, except like the people who actually bought into that set. And I don't know. I hope it does well in the TCG. I don't think it will. I think it'll be a Rogue 2 at best. I feel like every other deck's ceiling is just too high. But who knows? Maybe I could be proven wrong. Maybe Rescue Ace is a sleeper archetype, and we're all just sleeping on it. And we'll just have to find out. Hope you all enjoyed. Don't do anything stupid. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Thank you.